All right, on today's show, we are going live on video for a little ATO X and O. For today's episode, we are joined by Coach Brett Moore, and we are going to go over switching man-to-man defense today.
We've seen all of the switching in the NBA Finals that just finished. Phoenix has done it. Milwaukee did different versions of it, different adjustments, becoming more and more popular all the way down to high school. So we kind of wanted to start with you at some of the pros and the cons of switching, and since you've used it so much, so other coaches can have some I guess a baseline for where to start with it.
Yeah, so we've switched screens for probably 7 or 8 years, but not 1 through 5. And that's what was it, 2 years ago? We had a decent, or 3 years ago, we had a decent team, but we're like, we've got to do something to make us unique. And then I'm talking to other coaches, and they're like, oh, yeah, we play 1-2-2 because that allows us to work on our stuff a whole lot, or we do this. And I was like, well, I'm not playing. I don't even know how to coach a 1-2-2 zone. I know nothing about it. I was like, I don't want to do some of our 2-3. That stuff. Let's switch every screen. Like, I watched some of the Texas Tech stuff, and we don't switch everything, but we switch a lot. Like, we'll always have, like, if we're playing somebody that has a good big man, we're going to have a different game plan. We're going to have some different wrinkles we're going to give them. But really, it allows us to dictate the style of the game. I'm no longer coaching, or retired after this year, but or I don't know if retired, but like out for a little while. But we always wanted to have some different wrinkles we could throw at teams where we control it. And at Hinsdale South, we were never going to be athletic enough to dictate every team in our conference. The only way we could do that was to really slow it down. Well, no kid wants to play really slow anymore, and I don't want to fall asleep over there watching that. And so we got really aggressive switching 1 through 5. We had a couple. I think our number one steal guy was actually our slowest guy because he could just see some stuff and put himself in the right position. And really, we thought that's what it did the best of, is it really slowed down the offense. When they didn't know who was going to be guarding them next, in any screen, whether it was off ball screen, they were just not used to it. It really put us in an advantage. And the other thing was, we played the last full season before COVID. We played, I think, 30. We were 30-3. So played 33 games, and 18 of them were without a practice to prepare for the other team, whether it was a Christmas tournament, Thanksgiving tournament, you name it, a Saturday game. And, it really put us in an advantage because, yes, there were times where kids would be like, well, what do they do versus switching? I'm like, I don't know, because they don't go against anybody, but we'd have a good idea from what their offense was. But it really put us in an advantage of, this is something we work on every day, and you work on it for 10, 20, 30 minutes before you play us. And I've talked to hundreds of people about this defense. They all, we'll just isolate you. Yeah, I want you to isolate us with high school basketball players. Like, we will have a huge advantage. Even if it's my worst player guarding your best player, we think we can get them, where it's good for us. And that I've gotten really big there that gives us more time for skill acquisition versus memorization. Like, we're going to shoot the ball better because we're going to get more time to shoot. Our press break's going to be better because we're not worried about guarding, 12 different sets from every single team. And, the cons, I think I heard Chris Beard say this to somebody, of like, you're going to give up 2 or 3 baskets a game where, like, you just totally screwed up. But I have never seen even the best defenses not do that. Like, everybody's like, yeah, but, this. And the other one I liked was Brad Stevens said if he was a high school coach, he would switch every screen and just enjoy winning. I was like, I love that quote. Like, it really put us at advantage. And, I don't see a lot of cons. Like, some people are going to say, oh, yeah, we're going to post up your guard. Well, you know what? That was the number one way we created turnovers, or when teams tried to do that.
All right. So obviously, I've seen a lot of your stuff. We've talked a lot. So I know you tracked and took stats on all of your shooting, your defensive stuff, all that. So can you talk about a little bit about that? Again, to give coaches who are more analytics based some numbers to kind of, get into that switching realm.
So I think it was even before I was the head coach, I might have saw this study. Xavier did it. So it's dated a little bit now, but my kids don't know that. We give them these numbers. We're pretty sure it's pretty close to this. And ours usually track pretty close. But kick out threes at the college level are going to be made about 60% of the time. So that's why everybody's saying, layups and kick out threes. And then coming off a screen, and this is even with, unless the coach is an idiot, which most are not, they're not setting off-ball screens for a jump shot for some kid that can't shoot. So it's their best players shooting 30% coming like off a pin down, some action like that. A three off the dribble or ball screen, super low. So like when we're talking about a game plan, we're like, well, we're really not worried about that. We're going to track how teams score. So like instead of, my coaches usually would be like, oh, this is a really good set. This is a really good set. Number one thing I'm going through on huddle is how did they actually score? Like, do they, are they all transition? Like we played Morton, a conference team, and they were averaging 40 points a game in transition. Well, that's number one. We've got to stop. I don't care what plays they're running. We're going towards transitions. We use a lot of analytics when we're giving up shots, because I've yet to see even the best defensive teams not give up a shot in a game. So you're going to give up shots. They're going to make shots. What do we think statistically is best for us? So like one, it's, most high school teams are going to have one or two guys that score. We're going to gear game plans towards them. And really as a team, we're really focused on that 0.8 points per possession. Like that's a pretty good defensive number, because if you can get rarely are we at 1.0 and our opponents are, if we're doing that, we're talking like sectional quality opponents where it's just like an awesome game that you always remember being at. Most of the time, if you can hold a team below 1.0, you're going to win. Unless I've had some pretty bad offensive teams where we might need to take that down to 0.6 on defense because we can only get to 0.8. But our goal on offense is always be above 1.0 and defensively below 0.8. And one thing I try to do with the analytics too is like around January, I'll really look into those and like kind of wipe out the teams that would skew the analytics. So like, if we beat the heck out of some team by 30 points, those probably aren't going to show me very much. Like the year we were 30-3, there were some teams that we beat by 40 points. We held them to like 0.4 points per possession. I don't know how good that our defense was, or it was, they were just bad as well. But we're really looking at that 0.8 and 1.0, and we'll take that into practice too. Like when we're doing drills, if we're focusing on offense, it's like, hey, we've got 12 possessions here. We need to have this many. We need to have over 12 points or make it harder than 1.0 and really get guys to think to analytics like that. And then we'll even look at some more detailed stuff. Like this is going to be down the road, maybe during a season or the year before, like showing our guys like, look, we're giving up less than half a point possession when we aggressively switch. And like, I think that's how kids really learn, because if I'm just telling them stuff, they're not picking up on it. They're remembering 10%, the old learning pyramid. Like what's our really good point per possession? What's our really bad? Like every team that sets a lot of off ball screens, when you switch, they're going to say, oh, we're just going to slip and beat you. And like, that's one of the things we'll really show of like, when we stop that, how hard it can be for teams to score. And the last one, we still will lock on to your best player and like showing teams like when we do that, this is what we give up. This is how we, win. In our regional championship game, we didn't plan on doing it. Some kid came out and scored about 8 points to start the game. We're like, okay, James, here you go. Don't leave so-and-so. We're denying him. And because we don't want to get away from that either, because the high school level, I think that always has a place where you just take away the guy that can really score.
All right, Coach. So let's talk some personnel. So for teams that want to switch, people will talk about how we have to have certain personnel, or you don't want your 5 to end up on so-and-so, or you don't want your point guard to end up guarding a post. Kind of take us through your personnel importance.
I think a lot of people are scared of that 5-man switch. Our really simple rule is we're going to get some mismatches with our 5, like on their good guard or something like that. One, if we know a team's really going to do it, we might have some different strategies that I can show of like when to switch, not to switch. But the basic thing we tell them is just don't give up a layup within 3 dribbles. Because if we can wall up and get you to shoot a tough 2, that's an advantage for us, even if it's their best player. Because like when I had Barrett Benson, it was tough. He was 6'11", 265 pounds. Tough for him to guard some guards. And we also didn't want to get him into foul trouble. I would probably be more hesitant too, but I'm probably never going to coach another 6'11" Division I kid. Like most people are like, yeah, I don't have to deal with that. That was a freak thing. My niece is going to be a freshman basketball player. She's 6'1" already. I was telling her, I'm like, just don't give up layups. That's all you have to do. And she's like, I don't even know what he's talking about here with this stuff. But, we'll work on that mismatch stuff every day. So like, I'll put my bigs guarding a quick little guard and say, okay, you just got to stay in front. That's the basic thing. Because that's what I tell people too. If we have a mismatch, if my best defender's no longer on their best player, that also means he's in help. And theoretically, those are usually probably your best players to help too. Like they're not just on ball. And we'll work on that stuff. And we can do that every day while you're trying to come up with this ISO play. Now, more teams are going to switch than have been in the past. I think, that's been a big thing that people are talking about, I think, going towards. We love when teams are going to ISO because they just don't score at a high thing. Some teams, they would try to ball screen and get into switch there. Even if watching the NBA, sometimes I know I saw this in the summer league a couple of years ago, like on a dead ball, they would guard the point guard with their center to start it because they knew he was going to get a ball screen and there would be our switch. I would start really easy. And then like, as you're starting to see things, like then adding on to it and not worrying about like every little thing that could go wrong. Everybody's going to positionless 5-out basketball. We'll see how long that lasts. Like that's been the big thing everybody, I think, during COVID has been studying. But I think that's also, if you're going to do that offensively, this makes it great because now you can really have 5 guards out there. Like when we went small, we didn't worry about it because we had a plan when you were going to attack in the post. We also, and I don't know if I have it in here, we front everything in the post. Because high school kids cannot throw a lob pass. Like they will throw it off the rim, the backboard. That was our number one way to create turnovers. And we can work on that trap in the post every day. We can have like one call it red. That might not be good because they'll think it's a foul if that's your foul call, but whatever call you do, we can spend 3 minutes a day working on that and be better than you at it.
All right, so going forward, let's kind of get into a team wants to put this in. They want to start from the beginning. What are those first steps for your high school team or some college team out there that's looking to just put in switching? How did you go about starting it?
I studied high school teams that switched. I asked around, I was like, who switches? A couple of teams that were out there, and I started looking it up on YouTube, just because I think it's really hard to do college to high school or the NBA stuff was great, but also like the NBA, everyone on the team can score from anywhere and they can throw 40-foot passes with one hand, different stuff like that. It can be really tough. Or like if you're worried about things they beat the NBA switches with, high school teams can't do that a lot. And I think just starting really basic, like we do a ton of 3-on-3, just pass and screen away. Like that's our number one drill to work on switching. We maybe will do that for 30, 60, 90 seconds a day. Like just really quick, like, hey guys, let's get some reps in here doing that. Starting simple though would be the number one thing. going back to our first game of the season, like I wasn't so confident it was going to work. But I remember telling the guys, I'm like, guys, if we just aggressive contact switch, they're going to throw the ball out of bounds. And they did. Like they had like 18 turnovers in the first half. They had no idea what to do when the other team was switching. And the other thing, like, just don't worry about like the really complicated stuff. I've talked to a ton of different guys. I've been on podcasts, different things. And they're like, oh yeah, like, but when do I need to worry about like scram switching and all this like really technical stuff? Like probably a long time after you've really been working on it. It's if that, that's like saying like, when do I, for players, when do I need to work on my Euro step back, whatever stuff. As a coach, don't get too crazy on, it'll get to the point where you can add stuff. And the thing I would say too is like get ready and get used to like asking your kids questions and not telling them what to do all the time. Like why did you switch? What did you see? What did you hear is a big one that we talk about. And I'd say the other thing is maybe just identifying some stuff. John, you were saying you were looking into it and you had a girl that was 6'1". Maybe you didn't want to switch. Like just identifying some issues that maybe you would see in the season and having a game plan for. But I also think this is so different for offenses that it hides a lot of the stuff we're worried about. Like, well, if you're worried about a scram switch early in the season, yeah, you probably are thinking way too detailed. You should be worried about like just not getting rejected on a ball screen or not giving up the basket.
All right, Coach. So you just talked about keeping it simple to start. So let's talk about, you talked about 3-on-3 screen away. Let's talk about your small-sided games and some of the things you do in practice to start building that base to work up to that 5-on-5 and those 5-on-5 concepts.
So everything we're doing on both sides of the floor, like I guess people would say it's conceptual basketball. We're trying to get kids to read the floor, see different things. So hopefully we're working on this stuff no matter what drill we're doing. I've kind of gotten rid of like the block drills where we're just working on pivoting other than maybe to introduce a skill. And we've gone to like, we'll do 3-on-3, but every 3-on-3 thing we have does a different thing. So like if we're working on switching screens, we're going to start really simple. It's going to be pass one way, screen away. And our big thing is aggressive contact switches. Now we say that all the time. Is every screen on that exchange aggressive in contact? No. But in practice, we really want to overemphasize it. And we're like forcing the back doors, how hard we're getting up there and being aggressive on the contact switch. And then we'll change, we might do that from, the traditional point and wing spots, maybe put them over on the other, like one side of the floor, or like one of my favorites to show them just how hard it is. Be like, okay, you have to score on the third pass. So like kids really have to work on coming off that screen to get a shot. And we're putting the offense in a really tough spot, but defensively our guys are getting some reps at like defending somebody coming off of a screen where we know they're going to shoot. And a lot of trial and error. I used to think, I didn't like small-sided games when I first saw it because I was like, it's just playing 3-on-3. What is that? But then I realized, well, I was the one doing it wrong. It was, I was just running like one little action out of it or whatever. And a lot of these, we might do them for a couple of minutes and have 3 or 4 different ones we do for the day. We also do a lot of advantage, disadvantage. So we might be 3 defenders on 4 offensive players. Or we'll do advantage too. Like I love my guys, offensive or defensively, to have the number advantage and see what they would do then, and training a lot of those reading situations, because that's the game of basketball. Like, when you go through and look at your analytics, you don't score very much on your half-court offense. Like you don't score, especially when you get to a higher level and it's really well scouted, like your plays are not going to beat us. It's going to be what happens after that play. And I think that gives us an advantage when we're working on that stuff every single day.
All right, Coach, you just talked about some of those small-sided games. Can you just show us an example here of one of your drills and something you can do real quick and easy to start building those concepts?
Yes, this one, love this drill, especially lower levels. Well, and we do it at varsity too, but I think it's more than just doing 3-on-3. Some people think small-sided games is always 3-on-3. If we have 16 guys, we'll put 8 guys at one side of the court, 8 guys at the other, and we'll do this drill. But and everybody's probably seen this drill before, but 3 guys along the baseline, 3 guys on offense. We pass the ball across the baseline, and then it gets swung all the way around. And we're closing out to the opposite guy. And then to keep teams like different, so it's not just the same 3 guys working with each other all the time. They'll or like me, they can rotate, they can do different things, but we'll give them like things we're going to do in this drill. So like if we were working on pass and screen away and switching on that, when he passes from here, we're live after this one switch right here. And we can do this 3-on-3 or 4-on-4. And we'll add things like, the second pass has to drive, or, the wing, we're going to swing it and drive on the wing. And just using this format of rotating guys in where you go defense to offense, back of the line, and we get a ton of reps working on it. And communication is going to be really big. And when you're mixing up the groups like this, I think it really forces guys to communicate with new guys. And like they'll even, when they're waiting in line here, we'll tell them like, hey, make sure you're talking to each other about what you're going to do, what you can't do. Make sure guys know what we're working on. But we can even add in this drill, like we could say, hey, when it goes to the middle, he can pass either direction and follow it with the ball screen. So we can add to that as well. And like, after, because you don't want to do the same thing every day. And here we're working on closeouts rather than being the old school, 3-cone closeout drill where they're running to this one, running to that one. We've implemented it into this drill, and we can get a lot of reps. Offense and defense at the same time.
All right, Coach, that was great stuff with the 3-on-3 with the adding the extra screen. I know myself, I've done that with closeouts in the past, but I really like that addition. So now kind of take us through a little bit of an advantage-disadvantage situation where you can kind of prepare your team through a small-sided game or drill.
So another one we can do, we've moved this to 4-on-4. So it's going to be the same thing. We're going to throw the ball along the baseline, but I've added a 5th player. All right. So especially teams that you have a lot of numbers, or you're that sophomore coach that has 1 basket, awesome drill to work on here because you can get a lot of guys in. This is going to be the extra player, number 5 here. So the ball is going to start. It can start on either corner. It gets passed along the baseline. We can have them swing it to wherever I tell them to. Like a lot of times I'll tell them to swing it to this guy right here. And then something we're working on in the game. Like if we're working on teams setting double screens away, like that might be a drill we could do out of this. But let's say it's a ball screen that we're working on. 5 is going to be the extra player. So we're in, like, I'm probably looking into it a little bit more than I did just right here. But let's say, so 4, everybody was closing out opposite of where they were going. 4 is coming all the way over here. We passed them the ball here. Might be something we're looking at for that specific game of what this extra player is going to do. So like if we're really worried about a team in the post, this will be a great one to say, hey, you're going to be on the low block. 1 who rotated over to the help side is going to have to really help here. But we've created 5 offensive players against 4 defensive players. And then we're working on a ball screen. So this guy's following. We have these 2, working on the communication here, where our weak side's having to guard the extra player. And so we have a 2-on-3 situation. So we have, 1 came down here to help, 2 is up here. These 2 have to talk off the ball because they're guarding 3 guys, which happens all the time in the game. You can do this 1,000 different ways. Like just, if it's a team you're preparing for, this one I like because we can get a lot of reps in, again, like some of the other drills we've talked about, and I can keep a closer eye on it. It's like when we do 3-on-3 stuff, which is great because I can kind of put my 6 best players at one end, and they really know what we're doing. But a lot of times my other 6, it's pretty sloppy. But that's not necessarily a bad thing either. I might be able to tell my assistant, like, hey, here's really what you've got to work on with that group down there. Like, they're going to be in the game. They need to know one thing to really do on defense, work on that. But at the same time, my best 6 players can maybe also get the really good reps. In this, I can rotate guys in really fast, focus on some. Let's say they're going to set back screen to ball screen. That would be perfect. We threw it here and 5 came out, back screen, and followed it with the ball screen. People do that action all the time. It's going to be really hard to guard that with 4 people, and it's not going to be rules based. Like, we went away 1 through 4 switching because we had like 16 different rules every game, and like you multiply that times 30. Where you're talking 600 and something different rules your kids are supposed to remember. Here, we're giving them something visual where they're getting reps to work on this all the time. And we're saying, hey, what's the best shot for us you can get them to shoot? Rather than, oh, you have to memorize them doing this to that to this. And just like, okay, they're going to get a shot. Let's get it to this guy in a position we don't think they can make it very much.
All right, Coach. So now we've got our small sided games. We've developed some of those habits. It's getting close to game time, right? We got to put this all in practice. So, what are some of your team skills that you're working on after you've kind of built those habits to start getting in the game mode?
So some stuff that I picked up a long time ago from Baylor. I had a former, when I was an assistant, one of my players went out, was the manager at Baylor for a while, still tied to the program. And 2 things he taught me were that they always went over bounce backs. Like, when a guy would bring the ball to drive, they would literally like bounce back off the ball, because high school players, their first instinct is to reach in and try to steal the ball. They foul, you get put into a disadvantaged position. And our theory on shooting is, I can only think of a handful of guys we're worried about jab stepping and shooting a 3. In my 8 years at Hinsdale South, there were like 2 or 3 guys that I'm like, just get in their face and basically push them, because that's the only way we can stop them. Bounce back, they show drive at all. We bounce back like a big step, trying to create a little bit of a cushion, because we're usually 1 through 5 not as athletic as a lot of the good teams we're going to play. And that really helped us there. Big steps, also another thing I'm always saying, of how much ground can you cover on that first step. Like, I remember when I played, it was like, oh, you have to point your toe at a 45-degree angle of all this stuff. I'm like, cover as much ground as you can. Who cares about the footwork for the most part, as long as it's not super sloppy. And then a big one for us is wall up. So like, 2 years ago, we were really good. I had a sophomore that was 6'5", could play all 5 positions. And his best attribute was that he was the best team player. Like, defensively, I've never seen a kid wall up as well as him. And we won 2 or 3 big games where he switched onto their best player and got him to shoot a 15-foot jumper off the dribble. And here's Garrett walled up big, and the kid misses a shot. We get the rebound. That one's been tough for me, because I've had some phenomenal shot blockers. Like Barrett Benson blocked like 150 shots or something like that his senior year. But a lot of those weren't on the ball, which we think about. Like, when I had Zion Griffin and Aaron Timms playing together, Aaron would come and block a shot that Zion would wall up on and get a guy to take a tough shot, and here would come Aaron and swat the shot. But really, like, just telling guys, as an on-ball defender, you're not going to block a ton of shots. But if you can wall up, they're going to miss it. Another great thing I got from the guy at Baylor was, I think they said it lowered shooting percentage by 12% if you closed out with your left hand on a right-handed shooter. Like, that was what their stats. I don't know if that's true or not, but I tell my guys that, and they will do it every single time. When I put an analytic with something like that, we're like, well, hell, if it stops by 12%, I can do that every time.
So let's go now. Next step, we did those small-sided games. Now we have to have our team drills. So what are some of those drills that you have that you do on a daily basis to start working on those team concepts?
All right, so my assistant I think my first year at South brought this to me. He's like, I saw this drill. Kevin Garnett talked about it when he was with the Celtics. And I think they literally called it screen drill. It used to be on YouTube. I think they've gotten rid of it. Last time I checked, I haven't been able to find it. So we've got a lot of guys in this drill again. So we can rotate a lot of guys through in a very short amount of time. By the end of the season, 2 minutes is all we're going to do on this. I've got to whistle the 4 guys on the offense out here. I always have O's as offense and X as defense, and I did it backwards here. But offense is the X. They're all going to have a ball. So if they all have a ball here, and you're going to rotate defense to offense to back of the line. So you can do at least 12 guys. You could do this with probably 10. When you come onto the court, you have to be ready to go. Like we're all over. You can't walk onto the court. You can't walk to the back. We want this to be intense. When I blow the whistle, they come in, clap hands, and I don't even care what they're saying. It just has to be loud. Like this is just getting loud drill, and you're closing out to whoever you're going on. All right. I blow the whistle again. Offense goes to the back of the line. Defense rotates to offense. Next group comes sprinting onto the court. As soon as I blow the whistle, clap their hands, and they're closing out. Now we'll add to that too. Nothing too big here. But whenever a couple of things we'll add on to, when you close out, we'll tell them, hey, you've got to guard 1 dribble. So you can't get any paint touch or 2 dribbles. There's not a ton of space, so you got to be careful with this, because if they both go middle and you give them 3 dribbles, they're going to run into each other. But so they clapped hands, they close out, and now he's got to defend 2 dribbles without giving up any paint. And the other one that we'll add to this, because we don't do a ton through this, but we'll have them clap hands, and then you have to go to your diagonal. So they'll clap hands here, and you can do this however. He's going to go here, they're going to go there. I don't know if that's diagonal or cross, whatever you want to call it. We can add different things onto there to make it a longer closeout. And really the thing it does is they have to communicate, or they're going to run into people. And I'll even tell them, I don't want to see people run into each other because you couldn't scream and talk of what you were going to do, who you were going to close out on. It's fast. It's really we don't have to spend 15 minutes on this drill, and it's probably more realistic than the 1987 closeouts that, a lot of people wanted to do on a cone, because I have never seen anyone lose to a cone on offense or defense. All right, so this is our cone transition drill. You can do this as part of your scrimmage. You can do it 3-on-3, 4. I've never done it 3-on-3. I would say at least 4-on-4. But it's trying to create realistic transition situations and half-court defense and working on offense at the same time. So we've got every aspect of the game covered. Our transition defense drill used to be the one where they would go across the free throw line, they'd bounce the ball, you'd run, touch the baseline, and come back. Never seen it happen in games. So it's we got to quit doing this. I love the concepts we're teaching. We're good at transition D, but it's not helping us too much, so we went to this. So it doesn't matter who has the ball. You can do a live offensive possession, whatever you want to do. But whoever shoots the basketball, because we're going to transition to the other end, whoever shoots the basketball, so if one shot it right here, they have to run to around the farthest cone on the opposite, so the farthest on their side, while X's are getting the ball and transitioning 4-on-3 the other way. So now our defense has to communicate, because when we get to transition D, we're going to talk about in switching. We're not running by some guy and saying, hey, this is who I guard every possession. We've got to stop a layup, and then we're worried about matchups after we've stopped them. And this drill really works on it a lot. We can even throw this in in 5-on-5 live situations. And it creates, especially I think it's good to do that like when my top five is going against my second five, or a lot of times it's not even my second five because I've kept 6 and 7 to sub them in with my guys. We need something different than just coming up and just beating the hell out of them and, whatever we want to do to the second team. This gives us some good looks. And like, I'm convinced that 80% of basketball is advantage, disadvantage, offense or defense. And it really just creates situations that, the kids have to read how to play.
All right, Coach. So those were some great small-sided games and drills. Let's really talk about communication. And you kind of mentioned it in the scream drill and previously as we were talking about communication. Kind of how are you teaching communication? Because I think it's such a thing where we often will say to our kids, we'll talk, communicate, but we often don't really target on, well, talk in what way or what do we want them to say? So kind of take us through a little bit of communication.
I think one of the biggest things that I like to do, I'll even put in my practice plan for the day. After I've got everything planned out, I spend a lot of time moving things around, like what works good in this position, different things like that. And then I'll kind of go in through there and put some notes of like what I need to work on with communication. Number one might be for me to shut up, like for me to not to say anything. As a coach, we always want to say, or like every young coach thinks they're going to be awesome defensively. They're really going to know. I didn't know anything, and I thought I would be good at teaching defense. But like maybe like getting your players to talk more than you. But I go through all my drills and be like, okay, how do I put this onto the players? Like, I know this is what I'm going to do today. You could have them like echo you and say like, yeah, we're going to do like 5-minute shooting. That's not game like. They're going to echo everything. But like, do you tell them like what? And I think everybody's different. Every team's different. But like, do you tell them like, hey, this is what I want to hear. This is what we've been struggling with. I think the teacher and the coach has to really come out of like, how do you get them to do it? I mean, I told a kid that was a junior, I go, we just need to know where you're at on the court with communicating. And he didn't ever want to talk. And I was like, I don't care if you bark. Like, you can literally bark like a dog on the court. At least the other guys will know where you're at. And he thought it was funny. Like, I always try to say, like, keep the mood somewhat light. I'm always joking around with guys. But, like, helped him a little bit. I'm like, it doesn't matter that what you're saying is right. It's just the guys can hear you and your brain gets engaged whenever you're going to talk. So it starts in almost every single drill. And I think, like, when I was younger, I wanted to talk way too much. I wanted to, give speeches / sermons after the game. Now I'm like, hey, guys, we just got drilled. Like, what am I going to say to a team after a game that we just get beat by 20 points that's productive? But in practice, really trying to put it on them. The things that I say the most, this was all the time of early, loud. And so I'm like saying these three things like 80 to 90% of the time. I'm saying stuff during a game of early, loud, and often, aggressive contact switch, and be aggressive, talk, and see the court. That'll fix the problems. They're like, well, they're doing this. And I'm like, hey, be aggressive, talk, see the court. We'll think, like, you guys, we work on this stuff every day. One thing that I got from all this listening to podcasts, different stuff, somebody said that the best players can, if I say something to Billy out on the court, it takes him 7 seconds to refocus on the court. And he's my best player. My worst player out there maybe takes 30 minutes to get refocused on what we're doing if I tell him something. So I've tried to kind of put that in there. And, like every year you have that player that just can't overcome the mental part of it. Like, as a coach, and I know I've done this a lot, I am the problem that I've given this kid so much and I've got his head spinning so much. I've tried to get away from that and really just focus on getting the guys to talk and say stuff. With the switching, so we're going to talk communication in every drill. If somebody says switch, we switch. Even if that's a spot we didn't want to and he screwed it up, we'll fix that stuff next time out, a dead ball. anything. And the other thing I would tell people is create verbiage that fits your guys. Like, what are things they're going to be okay saying, or they know, or they can see that like helps them. Like when they can tell you like something they think it would be easier or better to say, I think you get that player buy-in more than like, or like if you can put a name on something. I was listening to a podcast today where a guy like they would name it off some other team that did something like that. As long as your kids can get that and getting them a really easy thing. You know, I've learned some lessons like don't let kids name plays because they'll be like, they wanted me to call a play like Doritos or something like that. I'm like, I'm not yelling out Doritos during the game, but like getting them to put some names on stuff, different things. And, you know, when we were really good, and we did the same thing this year, but like the kids could lead the timeouts and say way more than ever before. And I thought it made our defense better than me just listing off 5 things that I probably didn't even see the right way anyways.
All right, Coach. So obviously, you know, we've talked a lot about half-court defense, but one of the big things, especially in today's game and day and age, is everybody likes to focus on transition offense and fast breaking. So kind of take us through your transition defense focus into your half-court defense.
Number one is going to be don't give up layups. And that can happen a couple of ways. Like most teams that are terrible in transition D, I've seen so many good teams where I'm like, if they just could not give up so many points in transition, they'd be really good. It's either they turn the ball over, which everybody's going to do that. It's hard to stop. Like you're always working on that. And the one I'm big on is shot selection. Because I tell my guys, every time you take a stupid shot, it scores in like 4 seconds on the other end. If you shoot some really stupid 3, it's a long rebound to 2 passes, layup. I'll clip that and send it to guys. So I think your offense is a big part of it. We play some really good transition teams. And we'll do the cone drill. We'll work on it. It's what we emphasize a lot. And, you know, are we sending 1 guy back, 2 guys back? Or, you know, I've also had teams where we rebounded so hard they couldn't transition. Or like when I was at Plano, we were so much more athletic than everybody. We didn't really have to worry about a safety because we just attacked the glass and attacked you in transition. What fits your team? At South, it was, you know, sending 1 or 2 guys back. We're going to match up after we've stopped an action. You know, one thing we maybe would do, and I was starting to lean towards this a little bit more, is having somebody like our best defender immediately tag the other team's best player or point guard to slow them down. That would be a little bit higher level of the thing. But honestly, just not like getting your guys used to never giving up a layup, doing whatever it takes to turn the ball, stop the ball, make them throw 1 more pass, and then getting a little bit better at shot selection is going to fix a lot. You know, and that's what we've basically done. And I thought we were one of the best teams in the Chicagoland area at transition defense. So many teams we would play, I'm like, we have no chance to beat these guys. They're scoring 30, 40 in transition. We'd hold them to 6 points and be in the game until the very end or win. And when you play Proviso, East, and Morton twice a year, every year, you've got to get good at transition defense, or you are not going to be coaching very long. And, you know, I think that's our emphasis a lot has been bigger. But as far as switching, we're not worried about matchups until we've stopped the ball. And, like, we can fix a mismatch pretty quick we just can't give up something really quick.
So you just talked about not matching up until we get in the half court, not switching. So now we've stopped that initial transition. Everybody these days is doing some kind of action, some kind of secondary, a trigger, whatever it may be. So now let's move to the half court and how you start going in that half court situation.
So, you know, let's say we're playing a team, we've scouted, and we're like, hey, they really score well in half court, or like, you know, some of those teams I was talking about might be, hey, we've got to force them into half court. We always want our team to know where half court fits with the opponent. Like, is this a team that we can beat them 9 out of 10 times if we can make them run their offense? Or is this a team that's like going to annihilate us in half court offense because they can do great stuff? knowing who we're playing is going to be big. The aggressive contact switch we've talked about already, where we're trying to force the ball, maybe not force, but influence the ball towards half court. We're telling guys on that switch, be really aggressive. Even if you're not super athletic, think of that you're like trying to force an action, because they're not going to score a lot coming off of the ball screen versus our switch. You can be aggressive. People know to help. We don't switch cuts usually unless it's to get a better matchup. So like if my 5 was on the 1 and they were right, 1 and 5 could switch back, great place. Off ball, weak side to switch. We don't switch a screen just to switch or stand in the paint and point and say, hey, switch, do this. I know everybody's always afraid it's going to make them soft if they switch. And that's where that aggressive contact switch really comes in a lot. And what we do have to point that out quite a bit, because as the game gets going along, guys tend to stay more inside the 3-point line on the switch than getting out. And that's something we're always talking about in the timeouts. We said fixed mismatches off the ball, weak side. Just knowing like what they're trying to do with that. Like if a team's really trying to ball screen to post us, like, hey, we've got to be ready for that mismatch, or like we're playing somebody that has a guard that can put up 30. All 4 guys basically should take it personal if he scores. And like all the 4 off-ball guys are like, they know Johnny has the ball over there, and we're really not worried about other people right now. Like we've got to be ready for some early help, make aggressive mistakes. Like we're not talking like trying to take the ball out of their hands, but if you're going to make a mistake, do it in an aggressive way. Like don't sit there and say, well, I didn't really know exactly what to do. Well, they don't either, because we've switched and we're blowing up their play. Be aggressive and good things usually happen.
So everybody's always trying to find a counter, right? So what have you found that gives switching the most trouble?
So there's been, I know what the things in the NBA, they're going to, like, if Jeff Van Gundy's watching your game, it's going to be isolation and stuff like that, but I don't think that any NBA coaches, sorry guys, are going to be watching this to get my switching concepts in. But we're talking high school basketball. I know people say isolation, the slip a lot, and like maybe some screening their own guy, and just mismatches is the biggest one. Like they'll be like, oh, swing the ball and get ISO the mismatch. Like we're not super worried about that. And most teams now are going to positionless. Like I'll still believe that when I see it, because some people are still going to be like call guys centers and do different stuff. But a lot of people will be like, oh, we'll post a guard. We won a game this year because they continuously kept trying to post their guard, who was their best 3-point shooter, that we were worried about beating us from the 3-point line. They turned the ball over 5 times trying to give him the ball in the post, and we had worked on rotations to do that. The mismatches, we've said, keep the ball in front will early help there. The slip is a big one, and we'll talk about that. And it's, like we played a team in our conference crossover championship. They probably tried to slip us 50 times, and they scored on it twice. To me, that's a win. Like, yeah, it was embarrassing when they gave up those 4 points, but we got them to try to do that about 50 times, and we only gave up 2 baskets. I know another game we played against a really well-coached team. They run great sets. It took them 6 times of running a play to score 1 basket off of this action that I knew they had been working. I had never seen them run it against anybody else, but they had prepped it for us. And every dead ball, they were trying to run this. The 6th time they finally scored on it. Well, we got 5 stops before that. So, like, you can't get too beat up. I'll take 1 out of 6 on any action you're going to do. You're not, even my bad offensive teams, you're not going to beat. The things that scare me, I don't see in high school that well or that much yet. I love to do them, but a lot of people don't do them yet. That's like the ghost actions you're seeing in the NBA all the time. of where they're like showing ball screen and rim running or popping. They're never actually setting the screen. That's or the screener that's like it's a dummy screen to become a shooter. That's the type of stuff that scares me, but we don't see it very much. The main thing is we see people trying to isolate mismatches. And like one time we had a team, they're like, how are you going to guard we're going to get our point guard onto your big man and you can't stop it. It was one of my ex-coaches was their assistant. I was like, that hasn't even really entered our mind of being something that we're worried about. Like we know what we're doing this, but the mismatches, we try to take that to an advantage for us. And like, how do we work on it in practice? They're going to try to post us up. How do we get more steals? And that's one thing. So I had one of the best big men ever in this area in Barrett Benson. Zion Griffin was the same way. And he played for me too. Both Division I guys that could play inside. They hated small guys guarding them because it's different. It's not a big guy they can lean on. And then we front everybody in the post, and they really just don't know what to do with that a lot of times. They don't see that help coming. They're so worried about the front. And, the little guy bothers the big guy. Like, do your job. It's not your fault when you front if they get a score. And plus, we're going to have to give up some stuff. Like, no matter what you do, if they're going to spend, 12 possessions to get 4 points on feeding the ball into their paint, it's a win for us.
All right, Coach. So let's talk about defending that star player, that team's best player. Take us through that specific call or action or scouting report piece in your games.
Yeah, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a huddle clip of him shooting every shot he wants to shoot and start it off with about our scout for the team. I'm going to show him just draining about 12 shots and be like, he will do this if you are not ready. Like we played a kid that was shooting or we played one team this year. They had one kid that could beat us. That was it. So I clipped 12 things of him just looking awesome, doing this stuff and being like, this is what we have to stop. Because I want to narrow it down. Instead of, our old system, we'd have, here's the 15 things you have to do. Well, only like my best 2 players even knew 7 of the 15. I want 2 or 3 things we have to do to beat you. If I'm a young coach or I'm telling somebody how to make their defense better, I would tell them just take out their best player. Like that's going to make you, if you find one kid that can defend, take away their best player, make them beat you with 4. We can do that with switching. First, we'll have a call every year of James is going on number 7 and you're no touch or don't leave him. But then we'll also have things like James is the only guy to allow to call switch on that. But I'll also tell guys, and this is one and I've talked to a lot of people and they really like this that are doing switching, make mistakes towards their best player. So if Tom's their best player and he's coming off a double screen and we're not sure really what to do, double team Tom. He's their best player. They're probably looking to get to him. That guy that slipped is probably going to fall down because he's so wide open and you throw him the ball, he doesn't know what to do. We'll fix that later. We'll do things, but when we're going in practice, whether it's that Northwestern drill I showed you, or we'll even maybe put a different jersey on somebody when we're going 5-on-5 or offense, defense, offense, and being like, here's Tom, he cannot score. And James is going to guard him. We're only switching in emergency situations, but really it's got to be more than just in the second quarter they have 12 points and for the first time ever you say, hey, we're going to try to stop this guy. It's got to be something you've practiced. And I think, that is one of the things we're willing to do of we know that, they have a lot of teams have one guy that can beat you. Even in the highest level of Illinois basketball, if you can stop that one kid, you're going to have a great chance to win. And that's something we think we've always got to be ready for. I meant to say this earlier, but we also always, one team, they would start every half-court play with pin-down screens. And we'd have a rule of don't switch the first action. If we know a team's doing something, just to get their offense started, we'll be like, hey, they're not going to shoot coming off that action. Don't worry about the switch. So we will throw in wrinkles of things that times we won't switch, or we'll say, hey, James, we need to get James back on at Tom as soon as we can off of that. But we also want everyone on our team to know this star player's main stuff. Like, hey, we had a kid in our conference that could score 35 going right and -7 going left. So every person had to make that person go left. And I'm not a big all you got to do is take away his right hand. That's another thing in high school basketball. You can be really good if you can take every player's strong hand away. There's like 3 kids a year that can go either way.
So to close it out and wrap it all up, Coach, what are some tips or common points when coaches are thinking about putting in switching or they start putting in switching to get them going on the right path?
For me, I would say, watching a lot of film. Like, how are teams going to score? Like, what is this team going to do to beat you? Like, for us, like getting a good feel of our team going into the season. Like when we were 30-3, we had a guy that was 5'7". We knew people were going to post him if we fronted a lot. So we have to come up with a plan to create turnovers off of that. Now, he was 5'7", could also shoot 40% from 3 and was the quickest kid on the court. So we had some advantages there. But we're like, hey, Deshaun, you are never going to beat anybody in an arm wrestling match down there. Like, they're always going to post you with a guy bigger than you, but you can freak them out with your quickness and speed. And, he could go from front to back to left to right quicker than they could move. And we're like, you got to use that. And your help's going to come from somewhere else. They, like, post players, what's the first thing they're going to do? They're nervous. They're putting the ball on the ground. They're turning it over. Use that. And, like, be ready, I guess, for some different things people maybe would do. Because if you're the only team in your conference switching, you're gonna blow up their offense, and they're gonna have to score in different ways, which I think is a huge plus. But you're not gonna have like your thumbprint on every single little thing. Think outside the box and be different. Like, if I'm studying now, I would say college is probably the worst place to study the game. Like, they don't want to do anything different because they don't want to give up their like $2 million coaching salary. Half the guys can recruit, and that's about it. Division II, Division III, I think there's some awesome stuff. But, like, I'd study Euro basketball, high school basketball, different places where you're seeing things. Like, if you want to do a ball, like, I've got some great ideas, things I haven't necessarily always done. But, like, okay, instead of just switching on the ball screen, what if we did a European thing where we ran a guy from the weak side at the ball screen and double teamed it? Or, like, we double team the first pass out of every ball screen. Like, be different than other people. Because our main problem was that we were letting teams run their best stuff against us. And it was really hard. We were really good at it, and we worked a lot on defense. But I thought we never created enough turnovers because we didn't do anything to take them out of their comfort zone. Like, think of something that you could do that, like, they just totally don't do. Like, one year, every team in our conference had a 6'5" Division I point guard, and we had no one to guard him. So we went 2-3 and matched up after the first pass. Half the teams didn't even know we went back to man. Or the kids didn't, at least. The coach would be over there yelling, I told you they're not in zone. Different things, like have some curveballs that you can do. Maybe you stop switching, you switch out of the zone, different things. Study how your players really can learn. Like, I'm reading constantly books of, like, still my wife's like, why are you reading that? You're not coaching anymore. I'm like, yeah, I still really like it, trying to help other people out. Pay attention to practice of, like, what are your kids really getting from stuff? Because if it's just you talking, like, I know I've got some pretty good coaching points, I think. That's what every coach thinks. your kids barely they remember like the crazy stuff I say to them. I still get text messages from kids that I coached 15 years ago about like, hey, remember when you said this to Andrew after that game? And it was something, it had nothing to do with basketball. They don't remember any of the other stuff. I love to do, like, after our Christmas tournament, a deep dive into our analytics. And like, we've been really good. So I've taken some of the games that literally my mom could have coached my team and we would have won, kind of throw them out and say, hey, here were our 4 really good opponents. And look, our points per possession were 0.95. We gave up 0.92. Look at how much, like, different things if we're going to advance in the postseason, these are the teams we're going to have to beat after that original game. This is where we've got to get better. Not the things we did to beat that team by 35 that we could have just shown up and beat. Look, guys, when we're losing, we're getting out rebounded by 5 by good teams. Like, what are the analytics you can dive into versus the good teams? Or, like, my first year as a coach, we just had to have like smoke and mirrors to win games. And like, I think we were a game 500. That might have been the best coaching job I ever did, because that team should have won 4 or 5 games, not 15. Like, where are you at? Like, if you're focusing just on beating like the best teams, are you okay with only winning 6 games? Because I thought our best chance to get there was to win as many games as possible, get used to winning, and that would breed success. And I think the biggest thing with switching on defense, it's less time preparing for our opponents and more time on us. Like, can we get 10 things that we need to focus on our defense throughout the whole year and just focus on those rather than 10 for every team we're going to play? And when we were 30-3, the year before, I think we were 14-16 or something like that. We had 4 players shoot either over or close to 40% from 3. We took more time from getting ready for our opponents and put it into shooting. Now, they were already good shooters, but I think that helped us even a little bit more. And even at the lower levels, like, I don't want you spending time on my sophomore team working on defending this action that they're never going to defend at the high school level or doing this. I want them to be better shooters, better at guarding your yard, things they can do at the varsity level, and not worried about stopping America's play, which is like back screen, ball screen. Because, my God, if we can't stop that, it's not going to be because you didn't work on it enough at the freshman or sophomore level.
All right, Coach, we learned some fantastic things from you today. Thank you so much for joining us. If you just want to talk real quick, if coaches have questions about switching or want to get a hold of you, how they can do that. And thank you again for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I love talking basketball. Like I said earlier, I am retired from coaching. This will be my first year out, but I'm not leaving the game. I'm more in a family situation where I've been coaching for a long time, be 42 years old. And I have 2 little kids. And I want to spend more time with my kids, but I don't want to stop talking hoops. So if this interests you at all, I've done some other ones. I've gotten, I've had to talk to people from California, Arizona, New York. Reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you. Like, I talk to Todd all the time. I won't leave him alone after I don't remember how I even ended up getting in touch with him, but I love talking hoops. If I can help somebody out, I will share anything, because that's kind of my way to stay in the game now. I don't have my own team, but I love working, helping out coaches. Eventually, I'm going to get a Twitter. Todd, he's always telling me I've got to get a Twitter. I've got to do that. I have it. I just read all the time. But I love sending stuff to somebody like, hey, this is your offense. I saw this. I'm not ready to get completely away from the game. Who knows? I might be back in a couple of years. Maybe I never will. I might fall in love with just watching basketball on TV and not want to deal with the parents anymore. Now, I've always had great parents to deal with, but I don't. I'm not going to be envious of those conversations coaches are going through. But any way I can help, reach out to me. Be more at hinsdale86.org. We can share stuff. I can look at stuff. Let me know any way I can help.
Thank you, Coach, and thank you, listeners and viewers. We will be back for another episode of ATO on XNO.